Before he was a Texas Ranger, he was a small town Texas sheriff. Today, we talk Chuck Norris and Silent Rage, next on Drew Reviews. So guys, welcome back to the channel. My name is Andrew, and today we're going to talk about a movie that I feel is kind of underrated. It's 1982 Silent Rage, starring Chuck Norris. He was deep into his action career at this point, and I've not really spoken a lot of Chuck Norris and his movies on this channel, other than maybe there's a Firewalker review out there. But this movie was pretty good. It, of course, stars him. Ron Silver is in this as a doctor. Brian Libby plays the main antagonist in this movie, John Kirby, and he's very interesting in this role. I guess just real briefly, the plot of this. There's this research lab, and Chuck Norris's ex-girlfriend actually works there. Her brother helps run the lab, and they have created this formula that helps regenerate. And I'd like to preface this by saying the character of Wolverine had been around, by this point in comics, but a regenerating, self-healing man really hadn't been seen in a movie like this. So this was pretty cool for its time. Of course, in the beginning, he's out on his own, and he ends up getting agitated and axe murdering this woman with all these kids. And of course, Chuck Norris is the sheriff in this movie. His name is Dan, and he takes down Kirby, and they end up shooting and killing him. And he goes back to the lab, where it seems like the formula that they've created has helped him to learn to heal. And he comes back from the dead. And there's several other times during this movie that Chuck Norris and Charlie, played by Stephen First, his main deputy, get into it with Kirby. We'll talk more about Stephen First later. There's a couple of little side plots in this movie that are pretty good. You've got the character of Allison. She's Ron Silver's sister in this movie. She works there at the lab. She's got this past with Chuck Norris's character of Dan. And there's like a love interest there. There's a couple of love scenes. And then there's also this whole little bit that I loved where they go to these honky-tonk dives. It actually shows them doing sheriff's work where they have this bad group of bikers that they have to deal with. We might as well get into that right now because the action in this movie is pretty fantastic. You've got that first bar scene where he kind of stares them down, and then they bring all their biker friends to Old Blue's Bar. And Chuck Norris tells Charlie, who's a complete screw-up, go and call for backup. And he takes out like 20 guys in this bar fight. It's really good. He does use some martial arts, but it's mainly just brawling. He's taking down these guys one at a time, two at a time. At one point, the main guy tries to go out this window. Great scene where this bike just explodes out this window of this place. That was a really cool action scene. The opening of the movie is kind of interesting. You have Kirby going and killing this woman, and then Sheriff Dan and all his guys end up coming in, and he has to take him out there within the first 10 minutes of the movie. And that was a pretty good little opening sequence. You've got a guy who's just kind of this big brute in Kirby that doesn't really know how to fight. He just wrestles and mauls and chokes against a guy who's a very experienced fighter. And on paper, that doesn't sound like it would work, but the clash of styles makes it really interesting, and I kind of like the fight scenes they have in this movie. So after a really cool stalking scene in the dark, this creepy hospital is very reminiscent of Halloween 2 in that regard. You end up getting Dan back at the hospital fighting Kirby. He ends up kicking him out of like a 5th-story window and, of course, killing him. But, of course, he regenerates. Then the chase is on at the end of the movie. And this is probably the best action piece of this movie. He's holding on to their back bumper, being drugged behind this old county road in Texas. That's a brutal stunt. They end up fighting in the truck, and the truck ends up flipping. There's a scene where the stuntman who's playing Kirby set on fire. He has to jump in the water. Now he comes out. He's all burnt. Him and Chuck Norris fight around this well, and it's great. The martial arts in that scene are slightly sped up, so it makes it look like anytime Norris hits him, it's just coming at him with this amazing speed and great impactfulness. And I like the way that was done. You can tell it's sped up, but it looks good. In the final shot of this movie, I'll go ahead and ruin it for you. Kirby ends up lunging at Dan, who picks him up and basically John Cena's FU or attitude adjustment and throws him down this well. And I thought that was a good finale. How else are you going to kill this guy? And in one last scare, he comes up out of the water there at the end. But yeah, the action in this movie is fantastic. It probably could have used another scene here or there, but what we had was really good. As far as the humor goes in this movie, it's pretty good. Stephen Furst is both a pro and a con for me. You know, he's just coming off Animal House, and so he was kind of an it guy to put in something like this. It'd be basically like stunt casting. Be like putting Zach Galifianakis in this role today to see Flounder from Animal House. But it is nice to see Chuck Norris be able to play off this comic relief, but at times it's also very jarring. Like he tells his story of accidentally putting his dog in a freezer as a kid. Some of the scenes he plays in the bar where the girl's showing him her boobs, he just plays it as really dopey. but like I said, I like the concept of the character. I just don't know if I like that character. The vibe of this movie is where it's at. Like I said earlier, dark hospital, man, and there's a killer on the loose running after a girl. This was on a slasher list of the best slashers of 1982 that me and Brandon Smith both just looked at over on Macho Movie Madness. And to me, it's not a slasher. It's got some slasher elements. To me, it's more of a horror movie, but it does have that vibe, and it is very creepy. The looks of John Kirby, he's very Cro-Magnon, kind of like Ron Perlman in that regard, and so it really lends itself to that character, that he would be kind of simple and a little bit psychotic. But aside from that, and just the down and dirty vibe to this, you know, this feels like a late 70s, early 80s exploitation film shot in Texas or something. It's very gritty, and I like that about it. The acting in this movie is pretty all right. Ron Silver, he's good in just about anything. Chuck Norris is very passable in this role. He's never been a great actor, but I don't ever feel like, oh, he was acting in that scene. The girl who plays Allison, I liked, and I liked the chemistry that those two had together. There's this whole deal in the beginning where you learn that they were an item before, and she's mad at him, but she desperately wants to get back with him, and all that comes across in all these scenes very well. Chuck Norris has gone on record in saying that the love scenes were kind of the hardest things for him to do. There's a song in here called "It's the Time for Love" during one of these scenes, sung by Katie Seagal. That Katie Seagal, Peg Bundy, when she was pursuing her singing career. And that song's okay for something that sounds like a late 70s crooning, love ballad. But guys, you know what happens. With the good, always comes the bad. And there is a little bit of bad in this movie. Like I said, Stephen Furst's character, some things just get on my nerves. Whenever Dan is going after Kirby in that first scene, they jump out this window and Furst draws his gun and says, "Hey!" and shoots, and almost shoots his own sheriff's head off. All Norris does is look back and kind of give him a momentary death glare. And I just thought there should have been more repercussions for that. He just does some dopey things. And then in the end, Kirby ends up putting him in a bear hug in this hospital and breaking his back. And as he's laying there dying, Chuck Norris comes in. He's kind of holding him there, and he's like, "He hurt me. He hurt me real bad." I'm thinking, oh, did he? Did he hurt you real bad? Just terrible dialogue and terrible execution of that dialogue. Like, ugh. He doesn't ruin the movie for me. He does make me laugh in a couple scenes, but he's definitely kind of a drawback to this movie. But on the flip side, I wish Ron Silver was in this movie more. He's one of the 3 scientists, that have discovered this formula to help cure just about any kind of wound, even death, apparently. And he's the first scientist to go. And he's by far the best actor in this movie. I just wish he was in it more. But the main bugaboo I have with Silent Rage is the silence in this movie. Me and my wife were watching this on Tubi, and we thought our sound bar had quit working or something, because there's so many scenes, like there in the beginning or later when they're going upstairs, when there's stalking going on, there's basically no soundtrack whatsoever. You can barely hear footsteps. It's very quiet. It's kind of distracting, and you think something's gone wrong with your sound. There's not nearly enough score in this movie, and what is there is usually just kind of like synthwave little stabs like you get the time from like Halloween or something, and that's okay, but there needed to be more. It's very quiet. It's to the point where you could take somebody who doesn't review movies on a channel, just somebody just watching a movie one night, and watch it and be like, shouldn't there be music here somewhere? But guys, those cons aside, I really enjoyed Silent Rage. I thought it was a lot of fun. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm going to give this 6 3/4. I didn't like it quite as much as I liked him and Lou Gossett in Firewalker, but it is very good. And it's got this kind of down and dirty Western, almost noirish stalker vibe to it. And I don't know how many movies you can say have that vibe to them. So guys, for those of you who are still with me, I'd like to thank you for checking out the channel. If you like what I do, please like and subscribe. I always got movies like this coming out. I'm getting ready to do a creature feature. So in a previous review, I said I think I'm going to do Tremors coming up soon. There has been a lot of clamoring for Tremors on this channel, so that is going to be the next one I do. It'll be up in a week, so be looking for that. As always, guys, I'm Andrew, and I'll see you down the line on the next Drew Reviews.